whatever the case is for you at the moment. Um, I want to talk to you today about something near and dear to my heart and probably yours, and I'll make my computer settle down in a second. Um, the study of personality. Oh my goodness, everybody has one. Some of them we don't really care for, and some we do. And by the way, I'll be looking off to my left frequently because I got a ton of notes here because I love this. I love personality. I love culture and I love personality. Hope you get infected by my enthusiasm because I think really if you have a good understanding of those two things, it helps you interact with the rest of the world, uh, not only globally, but also in more intimate settings, as in your family or whatever the case is. We all understand our family's personalities. You step outside the family, then it's all guesswork at that point because you don't know what person this individual is presenting to you. Is that really them? Probably not, depending on the person. So I want to get into a discussion of personality. I want to define it for you first. There are a lot of definitions. I like the one that our textbook has, and I don't often read to you anything. Uh, Most of the time, I talk to you off the top of my head from what I've gained, knowledge I've gained through experience, but not always. This, though, begs me to read this to you, so that's what I'm going to do. And what is personality? Again, excuse me for looking away from the screen, but it's a set of relatively enduring behavioral and cognitive characteristics, traits, or predispositions that people take with them to different situations, contexts, and interactions with others, and that contribute to differences among individuals. I don't expect you to write that down. Basic. I apologize for this. This pollen is tough. Basically, what it's saying is you're made up of a lot of things, and you take those things that cause you to behave in particular ways in particular circumstances. That's what it's saying. Very, very few words to describe a lot of words. So I have this me, and I present this me to you, but I may not present the real me to you. It depends on the situation. It depends on the comfort level. Am I comfortable with you? Do I want you really to know me that well? So on and so forth. So there's a lot to that definition. You won't be held to any responsibilities to repeat that on a quiz. It's just instructional stuff. And I really apologize. I don't know why this computer is misbehaving as far as being jumpy. Let's see if we can fix it. Maybe we're having an earthquake here. I don't know if that's going to be any better. Probably not. All right. So you heard the word trait in there. Very important word. What is a trait? A trait is an identification. A trait is a characteristic that distinguishes you from other people. It's a consistent pattern of behavior that you exhibit when you're around other folk. And you display this frequently in any given circumstance. So it's a rather steady kind of a thing. So we talk about traits, we talked about character and characteristics. These are just things that make up what we call your personality. Now we're going to get further in depth with this. I want to go over some perspectives of this. And the first one I want to talk to you about very briefly is called national character. This is kind of, it's controversial, but it's discussed. So the perception that each person in a culture has a model personality type. If you think about, if you've had the experience, some of you have maybe, particularly if you're coming here to the university from outside of America, you probably at some point, potentially is a better word, had discussions about, yeah, Americans are this, that, or the other. Now, I'm not trying to differentiate. You're certainly all you all belong here. But what I'm getting at is, at some point in time, there could have been this stereotypical view of what an American is. And Americans have the same view of the rest of the world that, oh yeah, the French, they're blah blah blah. Whatever your stereotypical, and I keep saying that word for a reason, is of a particular culture. But the fact is that cultures do in fact share personality traits. So I have this national character. I've heard it said that Americans are arrogant. That would be a personality trait. That could be true. I don't think I'm too arrogant, but maybe I am. Don't know. But that's a national character trait. That's a national character. So we view all cultures with certain traits, with certain characters. What does that mean? It means that there's an expectation that develops from that. So if I meet somebody from a different culture and I've heard this, oh, this culture is blah, 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 Italians, very emotional, that kind of stuff. Then I expect to meet an Italian guy or girl and they're going to be very emotional. How silly is that? They may not be a person that displays emotion very much. So that's what I'm trying to point out here, is just because you hear about it doesn't necessarily mean it happens to be the case. Although there's enough of it that right now we can consider the fact that there's potentially a shared national personality. And then the other one I want to get into, the other two things I want to get into that are broken down even further: indigenous personality. An indigenous personality is this universal thing that deals with traits and characteristics found in a specific culture. That sounds a lot like national character, and it basically is a twin brother or sister to that. It's a conceptualization, though. It means that the concept of it is specific and relevant to that culture. So a national culture is a shared thing, and then an indigenous personality is within a smaller portion. Native Americans, that would be an indigenous personality. People think all Native Americans are rather stoic, or they think all Germans are stoic, or whatever the case is. So I think you can see the comparison between national and indigenous. It's just kind of a microcosm of the overall picture. And here's some more stuff to throw into the mix. Major perspectives that we consider when we study culture and personality. Psychological anthropology, number one. What is that all about? It's a basis for the notion of national character. So what it tells you is the perception, and maybe this is the difference I should have pointed out between national and indigenous. It's a perception that each culture has a model personality, and you may have missed that when I mentioned it a while ago, that most persons share in that particular culture. Now, the indigenous is dealing in traits in specific cultures, and it's centralized. National culture is a perception that this is the case. I hope you see the difference. The second thing under this major perspective business, is cross-cultural perspective, and that's what we're really interested in a cross-cultural course. It states that personality is discrete and separate from culture. So it's it allows for comparisons to be made. So what it's saying is, I can look at personality traits that I may deem as indigenous or I may deem as national, and then I can compare those. I can compare A to B, culture A to culture B, and see if there's any comparison to be had. Oh yeah, these people, Germans are stoic. Um, pick another. Russians are stoic. That sort of thing. Or Italians are emotional, and French are emotional, or British people are very stiff upper lip, they call it, maintaining bearing, so to speak. And then the third thing is cultural indigenous perspective. And this perspective has to do with particular cultures, which is basically what we're talking about in all of them. But it's only found in a specific culture. So like I said, it's a microcosm. It's a smaller portion. It's something that maybe develops just because of that culture and that culture alone, and the demands made on that. I hope all that makes sense. And I want to wrap this up with a very important study. It was done a number of years back. 2002, 1983 actually was the beginning of this, and then it's redone occasionally. I think the last time it was done is 2005, but I'm not sure. But it's basically current in the realm of research, depending on what the factors of the research are. And what this is, factor-wise, is called the 5-factor model. The 5-factor model of personality. And it's a model built around 5 distinct, there goes my computer again, 5 distinct and basic personality traits. And each one is named and described, and that's what I'm going to do for you. Now, this is a little hard to understand, because if you're not careful, it's tricky, and it'll lead you to believe that everybody on the planet Earth has these 5 traits. That's not what this study found. This study found that these 5 traits I'm going to name and describe for you are the most commonly displayed 5 traits, not by every person. You may have one of these, or you may have 2 of these, but you don't have all 5 of these. Somebody else may have 2 or 3, different from your 2 or 3. That's what this is saying. It's saying that these 5 traits that you're going to hear were the ones most commonly seen by the researchers. Hope that makes sense, because if it doesn't, you're not going to get this. So let's start with this thing. I'll run through these 5 rather rapidly and give you an idea of exactly what they say. Bear in mind that each one of these 5 traits has an opposite. Now, the reason that opposite isn't named is because it wasn't displayed very frequently. So these are the 5 biggies, the ones that were seen by the researchers in all these surveys starting in '83. The first one, it's a negative trait. It's called neuroticism. What does it entail? It entails anxiety, angry hostility. What's hostile? Just mean. I'm hostile. I'm mean. Depression, self-consciousness, impulsiveness, and vulnerability. It is basically telling you that you're emotionally unstable. Neuroticism is emotionally unstable. The opposite of that would be not non-neurotic, it would be emotionally stable. So if you displayed that trait, then you're emotionally unstable. How many people do you think are running around out here that are emotionally unstable? Probably a high figure, because look at the mental health industry and how we deal with these things. The second one on the list is extroversion. Many people think extroversion means a loudmouth. Well, that's not the case. An extroverted person is warm. They may be gregarious. They may be loud and boisterous, but not to the extent that we want to classify them as, I don't want to be around that guy's loudmouth. Not that way. Just outgoing. Assertive. You've met people that can be assertive and be acceptable. They're very active, tend to be. They seek excitement. And they have positive emotions. They're not negative, unstable people. Openness is trait number 3, factor number 3 in this 5-factor model. Sorry about that. They're given to fantasies sometimes. They are into art, frequently. They're into culture frequently. They display their feelings openly. They are quick with ideas, so they're quick thinkers in a lot of cases, and they are strong in their belief system related to their values. They're approachable, and that goes hand in hand with trait number 4, agreeableness. They're trustworthy. They're straightforward. They're altruistic. I won't go into a long discussion about altruistic. If you want to know one word, that word is sincere, truthful, altruism. They are compliant with the rules, whatever the rules might be. They're usually very modest, and they're tender-hearted people. They care for other people. And then the last one, conscientiousness. They're competent. They're forward movers. They like order. They admire dutifulness, something that you would need in a very structured setting like military, for example. They're achievement strivers. They like to achieve. They like to be successful. They practice self-discipline, and they deliberate when they're presented with new stuff. Then rather than jump to conclusions, they do some deliberations. Now, I know I went through that very quickly, but I am very, very, very sure that at this moment in time, you have an idea of where you are on that list. I would encourage you to explore what you think is what you heard about you, and don't try to define yourself. Leave that up to those that are trained to do that. And by that, I'm saying don't get the idea that you have some upsets and, oh Lord, I'm neurotic. Don't don't do that. Or I'm a little bit forceful when I deal with other people, so I'm probably extroverted. You may not be. Remember that there's an opposite to all these, extroversion / introversion, where you're not very, matter of fact, those people sometimes are insightful. They're not, sometimes they're misassociated with being jerks, and maybe they just do a lot of analytical thinking. So don't try to self-analyze. Just look at these categories, and if one jumps out at you, explore it, but don't classify yourself. The MMPI can do that. Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. So there you are. Hope that opens some eyes. It's pretty interesting stuff. Be with you again. Take care. Let me find my mouse. I can't find it. There it is. All right. See you around.